Have you ever heard a story so impossible, yet so strangely convincing, that you start questioning everything you know about history? Tonight we dive into a mystery that has haunted explorers, scientists, and truth seekers for thousands of years. A mystery that refuses to die, the vanishing city of Atlantis. But this isn't the Atlantis you've heard in fairy tales. This is a story built on real accounts, forgotten maps, suppressed research, and testimonies from people who should have never spoken. And by the time you finish listening, you'll wonder if Atlantis truly vanished, or if it was taken. Have you ever noticed how almost every ancient civilization, no matter how distant, no matter how different, talks about a great city of light that disappeared overnight? The Egyptians, the Minoans, the Maya, even tribes in the Amazon, all mention a place where the sky glowed gold, where people harnessed energy from the earth itself, and where knowledge was far ahead of its time. Historians call these myths, but a man named Dr. Elias Rowan, a geologist and ocean researcher, didn't think so. For 23 years, he dedicated his life to finding the truth behind these stories. Not for fame, not for money, but because of something he witnessed as a child, something he never spoke about publicly. His obsession began with a sound. It was 1989. Dr. Rowan, just a child at the time, lived near the Azores 9 volcanic islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. One night, while he was sitting near the shore, he heard something that changed him forever. A deep, humming sound, rhythmic and metallic. It wasn't like a ship. It wasn't like any sea creature. It felt purposeful. Almost like a machine buried miles below the ocean floor, he told his parents, but they brushed it off. But years later, when he studied geology, he realized something terrifying. The Azores sit exactly where many ancient maps place Atlantis, and that humming, it matched the frequency of an electromagnetic pulse, something no natural phenomenon should create. He became obsessed. Fast forward to 2017. Dr. Rowan was leading a deep-sea mapping expedition with a small research team, funded by an independent institute. Their goal was simple: scan the ocean floor around the Azores. They expected ridges, trenches, and volcanic deposits, but what they found shocked everyone on board. At 2:47 a.m., the sonar technician shouted, "Sir, you need to see this." Rowan rushed to the monitor. There, beneath 8,000 feet of water, was something impossible. Perfectly straight lines, right angles, symmetrical blocks, a circular formation nearly 3 kilometers wide. Nature doesn't create straight lines at that depth. It doesn't carve perfect circles or rectangular foundations. Rowan just stared at the screen in silence. He knew exactly what he was looking at. A city. Not rubble, not natural formations. A constructed grid. But before he could celebrate, the sonar feed glitched, the lines blurred, the entire screen went black. Then, something sent a pulse through their systems. A frequency so strong it shut down the equipment instantly. The ship's lights flickered. Power dropped for 11 seconds, and when everything powered back on, the sonar showed nothing. It was as if the entire structure had vanished. But structures don't just vanish, not underwater, unless something is interfering. Dr. Rowan refused to leave without proof. The next morning, despite warnings from the crew, he suited up for a solo dive in a submersible drone capsule. The ocean around the Azores is hostile currents unpredictable, visibility low, pressure deadly. But he didn't care. He needed to know. At around 3,500 feet deep, something strange happened. The water became unnaturally still, the temperature increased slightly, and the humming sound he heard as a child, it returned, but this time it was louder, clearer, like something ancient had awakened. The capsule lights illuminated the darkness, and then he saw them. Massive stone pillars rising from the seafloor, carvings resembling solar discs, symbols that matched those found in Egypt, Sumeria, even the Indus Valley. But the real shock was what came next. Beneath the silt, partially buried, was a metallic doorway, not rusted, not eroded. It was smooth, perfectly shaped, like it was made with technology far beyond our understanding. Rowan whispered into his recorder, "This is not a myth. Atlantis was real, and someone tried to bury it." Suddenly, the capsule lights flickered. A shadow passed overhead. It wasn't a whale, it wasn't a shark, it was something enormous and fast. The humming grew louder, so loud it vibrated through the capsule. The pressure around him changed violently, almost like the water was being displaced. He panicked. "Surface, surface now," he shouted into his comms, but the control systems froze. The capsule began to spin. Every warning alarm blared simultaneously. Just before he lost consciousness, Rowan saw one last thing. A massive circular mechanism in the distance, like a giant rotating ring, partially buried, and it was still moving. Something was alive down there. When he awoke, Rowan was in the medical bay of the ship. 2 men in dark suits stood beside him. They weren't part of the research team. They weren't from the institute. One of them said, "Dr. Rowan, your equipment malfunctioned. You saw volcanic formations, nothing more." Rowan tried to argue, but the man interrupted him. "If you continue this line of research, your funding will disappear, your credentials will be revoked, and this ship will never sail again. Do you understand?" Dr. Rowan realized what was happening. He wasn't being warned, he was being silenced. When the ship docked, all the sonar logs were gone. The video feed from his dive was erased. The entire mission was classified without any explanation. Rowan tried contacting his institute. No one replied. Within a month he was dismissed without reason. But Rowan didn't give up. He traveled across Europe in secret, gathering forgotten documents and suppressed records. In an old Portuguese archive, he found something extraordinary, a hand-drawn 16th century map. It showed a circular island west of the Strait of Gibraltar, with concentric rings of land and water. There was a symbol on it that matched the one on the pillar he saw underwater. The map was labeled A Cidade que Desapareceu, A Cidade Atlantis, the city that disappeared, the Atlantean city. Next to it was a note written by the cartographer. These are the lands that were swallowed in a single night. The people did not drown. They were taken by the light beneath the sea. Taken, not killed, not lost. Taken, but where, and by whom? In 2020, Rowan found new funding from a private group. The donors were anonymous, strangely wealthy, and strangely interested in his work. He assembled a new team, small, trusted, and completely off the record. They returned to the Azores, but things were different this time. Military vessels patrolled the waters, drones scanned the skies. The entire area was now restricted for seismic research. But Rowan knew the real reason. He waited for the cover of night. And then, they launched a stealth underwater drone equipped with encrypted mapping tech. The drone descended deeper, deeper, deeper. At 7,900 feet, there it was again. The grid, the pillars, the perfect lines. But this time, something else appeared. A faint glow. It wasn't coming from the drone. It wasn't bioluminescence. It was coming from the seafloor itself. The camera zoomed in. Rowan gasped. The metallic doorway he had seen years ago was now open. Light was pouring out, pulsing like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the drone's audio input picked up something impossible. Voices, human voices, echoing from inside the doorway. They weren't distorted. They weren't faint. They were clear. Crying, calling out, pleading. It sounded like hundreds of people trapped beneath the ocean. The drone moved closer, and then, a massive blast of white light engulfed the feed. Static. Silence. The transmission was lost. Rowan whispered to himself, Atlantis isn't a city. It's a machine.